Hey everyone, this week's episode of TechNewsDay is sponsored by Stitch Fix and by Fleur. More about them later.
So when the trailer for the film adaptation of the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical Cats dropped 2 weeks ago, the reaction was mostly horror, disgust, and confusion. Even from the dark corners of society that you'd expect to be into this sort of thing. And we've of course talked about how the furry community has rejected this attempt by Hollywood to pander to them. But there's another group of weirdos who you'd also expect to be into this who were not. Weebs. Not all weebs. I'm specifically talking about the weebs who are into Neko-Mimi, or Catgirls.
Not all weebs.
Anime Catgirls are, if you don't know what this is, I'm sorry, they are human girls who happen to have cat ears and or a cat tail and exhibit some cat-like behavior. And for whatever reason, a subset of anime fans really want Catgirls to actually exist in real life. Elon Musk being one of those weebs.
Well, good news, perverts. Japan has heard you loud and clear, and this week Japan approved their first ever human-animal embryo experiments in which human and animal cells will be combined to create chimeras, or human animals. Humanimals. Unfortunately, it may be a little while before the whole Catgirl thing, as the Japanese scientists are currently more concerned with getting human organs to grow inside animals to then be harvested for transplants. And actually, it's even more specific than that because, sorry weebs, but not all weebs, this sort of thing is actually pretty ethically murky, as you could assume, and that's why there's not a ton of research done in this field, despite scientists being able to have done it for several years.
Yeah, so the Japanese government has specifically signed off on a request by the University of Tokyo to try to create human pancreases inside rodents. And this involves first manipulating fertilized eggs of rats and mice so they don't have the ability to make their own pancreases, and then they add a type of human stem cells called IPS cells to those embryos before transplanting those embryos into rodent wombs to stew. Baby rodents will then later be born, presumably with human pancreases in place of their normal rodent pancreases. There you go.
But what happens to the baby rodents?
Yeah, once the process has been tested enough on rodents, the idea is that it could then be done to pigs and sheep, and those pancreases could then be harvested and transplanted into humans whose organs have failed for whatever reason. And a reason why this is happening in Japan is they have one of the lowest organ donation rates in the world. They are not into the idea of someone taking their organs after they're dead and putting it in someone else's body.
Yeah. Anyways, the whole ethical aspect that's made this kind of research taboo for so long is the fact that, as it stands, chopping up animals for scientific research is considered ethically okay, but chopping up humans for the same purpose without consent is very much not okay. When you start mixing the two, the question becomes, at what point should an animal with a human gene or human genes be considered human? And also, when are they going to start chopping up the human organs from these animals to consume them?
Yes. Yeah, us cannibals really need this to come through. I want the taste of human flesh without the ethical
quandary.
Yeah.
The compromise reached for this research is that if at any point scientists detect that human cells exceed more than 30% of the brains of these rodent embryos, they'll suspend the experiment.
Anything after that, like, oh my God, I'm a fucking rat!
Yeah.
Please kill me.
It'll beg for death, so it's ethically fine.
What have you done to me?
It's ethically fine if the animal begs for death. Anyways, the lead scientist says he won't even bother attempting to bring any hybrid pregnancies to term until a lot more research has been conducted. And from the sounds of it, it's going to be a long time before organ transplants grown in animals is going to be a serious medical possibility. Genetically engineered Catgirls, unfortunately, not arriving anytime soon either, but once Elon gets his hands on this kind of research, the world is his oyster.
Yeah, it's very much like the same way Elon Musk, his company, which is basically just trying to stop Parkinson's disease or make it more tolerable. For him, it means someday we're going to be all RoboCop. Yeah. And much like sending rockets into the lower atmosphere is, for Elon Musk, how we're going to get to Mars in 10 years. You take something like this, Elon Musk growing human transplants inside of other animals, and he's like, guys, the real thing here, Catgirls.
Yep.
We're getting Catgirls in 5 years. And then all of his employers are like, no, please,
hold
on, Mr. Musk, please.
Well, this also reminds me of the crazy story from the end of last week with.
Oh my God.
Sure, it's ethically wrong, but they're proof that a place in Arizona was actually just chopping up human organs and sewing things back together and really fucked up. The FBI investigated, found basically a human butcher shop.
Yeah, so the thing with that was like people, when you die, you can put in your will that you would like your body to be donated to science, which most of the time means like your organs are either going to be harvested or you're going to be sent to like a medical school to be...
Or someone on the black market can buy your body for like $3,000.
Yeah, the laws around it are probably not as thorough as they should be, especially in Arizona apparently, because there was a company that was just like, the articles on that left way too many question marks.
Yeah.
As like they're just describing the most gruesome shit. I'm like, wait, but like, why? Who was sewing just a bunch of body parts together in like a real life Frankenstein? Like, was it just as a goof?
I mean, it was literally a Dr. Frankenstein who was trying to see if he could do it, not whether or not he should do it.
Yeah, that was a weird story. I read that and I was like, I don't know where I can fit this in to talk about it.
It's fucking gruesome.
It's horrifying.
Gruesome.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on. A few weeks back, we talked about how this year's Bastille Day parade in Paris, during that whole thing, the French government's usual show of military might included, in addition to tanks and jets and armored personnel carriers, a guy flying around in the air with a rifle like a dang supervillain. And that guy was Frenchman Franky Zapata.
The Frenchman henchman.
On his Zapata Flyboard Air. It's an extremely dangerous and impractical personal flight vehicle that pretty much he and only he knows how to properly operate. But the implication was clear. That right there, that's the future of warfare, folks.
Except maybe not. I mean, like we said, it's dangerous and impractical. It can only stay in the air for about 12 minutes. It can't really support the weight of any modern soldier with all their gear on. And it's unclear how exactly it would be actually helpful on the battlefield, aside from making the enemy look up and shout like, holy shit, the guy's flying, uh-oh, distracted and dead.
Anything a drone can do, this can do worse.
Yeah, and you also hear it coming like miles away, because it's very loud. Nevertheless, though, it's still some very cool and impressive tech. I'm not going to deny that. It's easily the most advanced take on personal flight in the 60 or so years the companies and militaries have been attempting it.
It needs speakers that play Flight of the Valkyrie when all it does is... Yeah.
Can't get struck for that. Yeah, it's entirely possible that Zapata can eventually refine and retune this thing into something that's useful in search and rescue, if not actual armed conflict. But right now, not quite there.
Yeah, it would be funny to see him rescuing someone from a hiking accident and watching the person spin below just one person that's looking at them.
When we reach that point, we'll have really done it.
Yes. Now, unfortunately, it would seem that after the big ego and PR boost that he got on Bastille Day, Franky Zapata has flown too close to the sun. Much like what's the one that melted his wings?
Icarus.
Icarus, yes. Well, actually, he flew too close to Britain. So.
And the sun never sets on Britain, so the analogy is rock solid.
After showing off his flight skills and breaking records at various events over the last couple of years, Zapata's latest attempt at outdoing himself was supposed to be him crossing the English Channel and flying from France to Britain. Alas, he ended up just falling into the ocean halfway through, but he's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine. While headlines about Zapata's failure conjure up images of a guy running out of fuel in midair and falling hundreds of feet into the ocean, what actually happened was much more lame.
Yeah. Like, no! I don't have enough fuel! Yeah, that's not actually what happened. Now, when we heard about Zapata's plan to cross the channel, we assumed that since his flyboard only has enough fuel capacity for about half the distance from Sangatte to Dover, that he had some new, more efficient model that he was going to be using. But no. Turned out that what Zapata planned to do was refuel while in midair halfway across. Which would have been fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But it turns out the French government was not okay with this.
Damn.
Too dangerous. So the plan was changed to Zapata having to land on a tiny little floating platform halfway across, taking off his fuel backpack and replacing it with the fuel backpack waiting for him on the platform, and then getting back in the air and completing the journey.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, it's kind of lame because you're not really flying across the English Channel.
No, you're landing on a tiny little man-made island halfway through.
Yeah, that's like saying when I walk across the room, like I actually jumped across the room. Like I stopped like every 14 inches, but I flew. Those were just brakes in my flight. But I mean, fine, whatever. The French government, they didn't really want like this guy to die in the middle of the ocean. This was safer, so fine.
Yeah, except no. Turns out the seas were pretty rough that day, my friends.
The sea was angry.
That day was last Thursday. So when Zapata landed on the little 1 square meter landing platform to refuel, the sea just immediately tossed him overboard. He was totally fine and totally conscious, and his associates in a nearby vessel were able to quickly get him out of the water. But Zapata was reportedly furious at the French government for not letting him do the refueling the way he wanted to, damn it, which would have presumably gone perfectly fine.
I think this man knows what he's talking about.
Now, this is especially since the UK government, they didn't give a shit about how he did it as long as he didn't put any bystanders at risk.
Yeah, come on, France. Be more like your neighbor, the UK.
Anyways, a wee bit of a setback for Franky Zapata, but the damage is entirely to his ego, especially considering this whole thing was done on the 110th anniversary of the first aircraft crossing the channel, and he hoped that he would be setting a similar milestone.
Nope.
But
He is still the first man to fly on a personal flight device and then land in the middle.
Why
of the
would they
ocean.
think it would be safer to land on a platform that's being moved by the ocean?
I don't know. Maybe they, maybe there was just miscommunication here. Because it's like landing on a tiny little platform in the middle of the fucking ocean seems pretty hard too.
What would be safer is if the plane flew near him and then he just went.
Just do a little
siphoning.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
He probably could.
Yeah, I think it'd be safer.
He's pretty agile up on this thing, despite just I would never in a million years get on it.
Suck a plane's dick while you're flying across the English Channel.
Yeah. Well, better luck next time, Franky, but chin up, because the French are apparently very invested in this sort of real-life science fiction. Last week, it was reported that the French military is currently looking to hire a team of sci-fi writers to use their creative powers to envision future threats to national security. It's called the Red Team, and the 4 or 5 people hired for it will be in charge of imagining scenarios of disruption that otherwise might not have occurred to the military's top brass, which, unfortunately, it sounds like it won't include stuff like aliens or kaijus, and will mostly be focused on trying to anticipate how terrorist groups or hostile states might use advanced technology against France. One of these days, we're going to find a planet. It's going to be filled with a really rare, cool metal, and we're going to want that metal to bring back to Earth, but there's going to be a bunch of blue people down there. They don't want us to take it. So what we do, we take a paralyzed soldier, we put him in a sort of virtual reality sort of thing where he can control the body of one of these blue people. We send him down there as a spy. He infiltrates. He gets us this unobtainable metal. Boom. Beep, bop, boop.
And it's called Billy and the Clonosaurus.
So let's say someday we find a portal in the middle of the ocean into another dimension through which giant kaiju creatures are coming to the Earth, really messing up our shit. In that event, we're going to need some giant robots, giant humanoid robots that will fight these kaijus hand to hand.
Operated entirely by people inside of the kaiju.
And you need 2 people because, it requires 2 brains.
Luckily, we'll use Elon Musk's brain sync technology so that everyone's on the same page. And when it happens again, it's going to be a way more lame situation.
Yeah.
That people
the second time will be not good.
Anyways, the idea of military is hiring science fiction writers to basically just come up with new things to be worried about. It's not actually a new idea. The US did it after the 9/11 attacks, realizing that Al-Qaeda had pulled off a pretty simple plan that the US had never just imagined would be a possibility. So they brought in a bunch of writers to brainstorm other various ways that terrorists might attack the US. In the case of France's Red Team, their job will specifically be to look at new and emerging technologies and imagine all the various ways that France's enemies will use those technologies against them in a few years down the line. Wow, the Saudis have all this Bitcoin and now they have more money than our entire country. What do we do?
Sacre bleu. Yeah, I feel like the loss of Tom Clancy wasn't just bad for the readers of the world. It was bad for the U.S. government because they just read the latest Tom Clancy book and like, fuck, that's something we should probably be worrying about.
Boys, get in here. I need some hypotheticals.
Yeah, it's a fun job though. Good for them.
Nothing like being a sci-fi writer and going to work for the military.
It's probably one of the few government jobs where they encourage you to smoke weed.
Yeah.
Get more paranoid.
Do some acid, do some shrooms.
Just think of the most fucked up thing that could possibly happen realistically right now.
That's a bad trip.
I don't know, it's not fun. Anyways, before we get into more news, including a whole lot of hacking news, it's time to talk about this week's sponsors, starting with Stitch Fix. Personal style is like a fingerprint. Everyone has their own. Whatever your style, the expert stylists at Stitch Fix are ready to help you express yourself. Stitch Fix is an online personal styling service that delivers your favorite clothing brands right to your door. To get started, go to stitchfix.com/newsday, answer some questions about your preferred style, and your personal shopper will ship you a box of clothes, shoes, and accessories.
There's no commitment required and you only pay for what you keep. Shipping, exchanges, and returns are always free. Plus, the $20 styling fee is automatically applied towards anything that you keep from your box. You'll never have to worry about looking good again with Stitch Fix. So get started today at stitchfix.com/newsday and you'll get an extra 25% off when you keep everything in your box. That is stitchfix.com/newsday.
And this episode is sponsored by Phlur, P-H-L-U-R. Even if you spritz on some cologne or perfume every day, here's something you might not think about. What's actually in it? That's what makes Phlur different. They make stunning, non-toxic scents and list all their ingredients online. You get a good scent with clean ingredients, and the sample process is fun. First, you get to know each of Phlur's scents with pictures, words, and even playlists on their site. Then you actually try them on your own skin and see how it works for your life.
Phlur's world-class perfumers are scent artists, and these perfumes are their master works. We're only using perfume as a technical term here because every Phlur scent is gender-free. And the best part is that Phlur is a completely transparent fragrance company. They tell you every ingredient that's in their perfumes and why it's there. Head over to phlur.com/newsday and check out the custom Phlur sample set that we put together with our favorite scents, Hepcat, Sandera, and Greylock. If you're not sure where to start, there you go. We did it for you. Smell like us. You can smell like us.
Well, not right now. I don't think I smell very good right now.
Smell like sweat
I
right
need
now.
a little Phlur.
Now, if you want to smell like us, go to phlur.com/newsday to check out our curated sample set and get 20% off your first custom Phlur sample set. That's phlur.com/newsday to get your first 3 Phlur fragrance samples at 20% off. phlur.com/newsday. Links are always in the description below. But back to the news.
Back to the news. Now, on News Dump this past weekend, we told you about how you might have $125 waiting for you if your personal data was compromised in that huge Equifax data breach back in 2017. And there's a good chance that your data was in fact compromised in that breach, even if you don't know what Equifax is and have never handed over any information to them, because Equifax is a credit reporting company who has all your personal data, whether you like it or not, and 145 million people had that data stolen when Equifax's servers were breached.
Anyways, in a very sad update to that story, it turns out that, stop telling people about this. Yeah. Shh. You might get a whole lot less than $125. It turns out that in the fine print that Equifax has, they only have $31 million to go around. So doing the math, that means if more than 248,000 people file claims, that money will get divided up into smaller and smaller amounts. Taking that math to its logical extreme, if every single one of the 145 million people affected by the breach filed a claim, each person's gonna receive a settlement of 21 cents.
21 cents.
Absolute horseshit, and it really demonstrates how little Equifax is giving up in exchange for putting nearly half of all Americans and people outside of the country, all of their personal information in the hands of hackers or anyone that wants to buy that from them on the dark web.
It's just out there.
This is a company with an annual revenue of over $3 billion a year, by the way. $31 million amounts to them paying a parking ticket.
Yeah.
It's really dumb.
The lightest slap on the wrist possible.
The good news, the chances of, I would say even half of the people filing a claim, not great.
Yeah, because they've really not. They're relying on the news to do their disclosure for them,
Yes.
which I don't even see how that's fucking legal. Like I'm pretty sure there's
You should
a
send
required
a letter.
disclosure when
Yeah.
this happens.
But so far, the internet is key, and you've probably only seen it on the internet, so not to dick all these people over, but stop telling people. Also, the main thing here is they probably should have been fined a hell of a lot more, to the point where every person, no matter what, got $125.
Yeah, it's like the entire way this works is very odd. Like, it seems unethical, shady, and wrong.
I hate the idea that people are taking on the discount for the more people who were affected by a detrimental data breach. Like, it shouldn't bring our fucking settlement down that you fucked over 145 million people instead of 30 million.
Anyway, also keep in mind that you don't actually, you can choose to refuse the money, but you actually have to let them know through some other form that you're doing that. But that will allow you, if something terrible happens, to your identity somewhere down the line, you'll be allowed to sue them. If you take the money, you can't sue anybody. You just get $125.
Dang.
Or 21 cents, who knows. But hey, just in time for that disappointment, we've got another huge data breach on our hands this week, affecting around 106 million customers of Capital One Bank.
More settlement money.
We'll see. Now, the person allegedly responsible for this hack, a 33-year-old Seattle woman named Paige Thompson, was arrested on Monday, and it sounds like she basically wanted to be caught.
Yes.
Because she carelessly boasted about the hack all over social media on Twitter, GitHub, Meetup, and Slack. In fact, the GitHub page where a lot of the data was posted included her full name, her resume, and her home address. Which at that point, it sounds like someone who's been framed, but from the sound of it, she was in a bad place emotionally and mentally.
Also makes Capital One look fucking terrible, because if someone this stupid can get all that data.
Just some fucking rando broke in, and it's troubling that some random hacker was able to access 100 million people's data from a major financial institution who you would assume was on top of its cybersecurity. But alas, this wasn't the first time, and it certainly won't be the last.
Yeah. And they did put out a statement. They're like, okay, the good news is that no social security numbers and I think it was like credit scores were lost, except for like 20 million.
Yeah.
But they said that after they said that none of that had been leaked. So
these people are the fucking worst.
Big brains. Anyways, another hacking news. Remember back in 2017 when there was a ransomware cyber attack called WannaCry that affected 200,000 computers worldwide? And the crisis was resolved thanks in large part to a 22-year-old security researcher known as Malware Tech who accidentally discovered a way to stop it. No, you haven't? Well, it's been a while, but the craziest thing about that story was the fact that not long after Malware Tech, real name Marcus Hutchins, thwarted the biggest ransomware attack in history, he was arrested by the FBI for something completely unrelated, specifically for developing his own malware that was used to steal banking credentials.
Yeah, so the malware that Hutchins was accused of creating, called Kronos, had been created and sold 3 years earlier when Hutchins was a teen. So he was now in this awkward position of being potentially sentenced to 10 years in prison for something that he'd done years earlier, despite the fact that more recently he'd been using his powers for good in a very public way. But anyway, this past April, Hutchins pleaded guilty despite having to potentially spend a decade in prison. But last week at his sentencing hearing, the judge ruled that because Hutchins' work in white hat hacking added up to, quote, too many positives on the other side of the ledger, Hutchins' sentence would be for time served plus 1 year of supervised release, meaning Hutchins was free to go, which seems fair.
I was going to say, it seems like one thing canceled out the other, and I'm glad the judge saw it that way.
It's very, unusual to see a judge issue this kind of ruling that kind of makes sense.
And you know what? With that kind of leniency, hopefully this guy goes on to do more white hat stuff, because it should be inspiring to him.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's pretty clear that despite being a very naughty boy in his early years as a hacker, Hutchins had proved himself to be on the side of the good guys since then, and to put him in prison instead of letting him continue working in cybersecurity, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. The talents that can be used for good would be squandered in prison, and also make him resent a lot of things when he gets out. I don't know. Anyways, as the judge said in his sentencing, quote, "It's going to take the people like you with your skills to come up with solutions, because that's the only way we're going to eliminate this entire subject of the woefully inadequate security protocols."
Yeah, I mean,
cool judge.
Look at, just like the Capital One thing this week. It's like, you're in a bad spot if more people know how to break into these systems and exploit them than people who are ready and willing to actively work against that.
Yeah.
And it's just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to lock up people who have these skills and may have used them for illegal purposes at one point, but mostly are on the side of good.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of hacking.
That's why, if you murder someone, but you get someone pregnant, evens out.
Yeah.
You created a life
for a life.
Yeah, it's simple as that.
Dun, dun. You're free to go, sir.
We need more baby makers like you.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
Yeah. Speaking of hacking, if you're like us, you're completely illiterate when it comes to the actual nuts and bolts of how most hacking actually works. But here's a fun little life hack for you. If you're not happy with the results that show up when you Google your name, just forge a judge's signature and send a fake legal document over to Google, and they'll go right ahead and fix those results for you. It might be a little harder to do that now, though, now that a CBS News investigation has uncovered the fact that a lot of reputation management companies manipulate search results in this way.
Wow, those companies are going to be sad. Their secret's out, and also Google's probably going to clamp down a little bit.
Yeah.
Generally, these companies, they fix your search results by generating a bunch of fake content that floods the search results and hides the stuff that you want hidden. But the only way to get Google to actually remove a link from search results is with a court order signed by a judge. And it turns out a lot of these reputation management companies are in the business of making counterfeit court orders, some of which hilariously don't stand up to even the most basic scrutiny, with one featuring a case number of 123456789.
Huh.
There's a lot there to say about Google's protocols when it comes to this.
Yep,
but
looks good. Throw it in the pile.
less funny about this is the fact that 2 of the 60 fraudulent court orders uncovered were submitted on behalf of child sex offenders in order to remove information about their crimes from Google.
Yikes.
Yeah. So anyways, thanks to this journalism, it looks like law enforcement at multiple levels is looking into it. So
Yeah.
that's good.
And yeah, hopefully Google's not off the hook for
No.
just, you know, you turn in a piece of paper. My son can't go to school today. He's got a cold.
Well,
it's written in crayon.
You would assume that Google has all of these court orders tracked and can pull them up and reinstate the search results. Based on,
You would think Google has an actual, you know, attorney on staff,
Well,
you know, looking at these.
I'm
as
just
they
saying
come
the
in.
tech should exist for them to be like, oh, unhide,
Yeah.
because this is clearly fake. Not just,
We
well, they got in
shall-
before the buzzer, so I
Yeah.
guess everything's going to stay the way it is.
We'll see.
We're going to have to hire like 2 people to clean this up. Guys, it's a lot of work.
Guys, we'll train an AI to do it.
We'll look into it.
We'll teach the algorithm.
The good news is that the algorithm learned a lot from this mistake, guys.
Yeah.
Net positive.
Always learning. Anyways, that's it for today's episode.
We have a new exclusive podcast.
on our Patreon.
It was
or,
all Q&As this time.
Yeah, or if you're a YouTube member,
Check the community tab.
Check your emails, and be sure to watch the latest episode of News Dump.
And Weekly Weird News.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to go take a shower because it's very hot and
Yeah, I'm
sweaty in
gonna
here.
go jump in the river. Just kidding, we don't have one of those here.
Oh, we might do another Wolfenstein stream. Wolfenstein stream this week, so keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
I'll probably just put it live, like right before it goes live.
Yeah.
That way no one's confused.
Surprise.
Watch our other videos.
Bye.